I had a conversation with my old friend Sam from high school, but I really wish I had it recorded, but I'll have to ask him about this when I talk to him. But I was talking to him, and he told me about the synchronicity, and he was like saying that he had found someone had said something about an octopus, and then someone else showed him a picture later on in some totally different scenario. Someone else showed him a picture of someone who had octopus tentacles for hair, and he's like, how do you explain that?" And I was like, "Man, that I am so glad that you said that because that's been happening to me." So then I told him, I think that ideas have mass. I think that there's a gravitational attractive force to big, deep ideas, and that we orbit and revolve around massive ideas. And so the idea becomes more massive as it's more integrated. And in a way, I mean, that is what is happening in physical reality when an object revolves around or orbits around a larger mass. That's basically what it's doing, is it's integrating into a system, an orbital system. Just like we have a star system that revolves around the sun. It creates a system because all the parts are integrated around a central unit. So they all have a relation to this same unit, and that integrates them. The sameness of their relation integrates them. Versus if we were to talk about some other star system in some other part of the galaxy, we wouldn't consider it to be the same star system because it doesn't have the same integrated parts. Its movements are not dependent upon our movements and vice versa to a discernible degree insofar as. So yes, there's a tiny little influence, I'm sure, but the influence that our star system has upon others and others has upon us is, low to negligible in most of the measurements that you would have of the star system, of our solar system. If we're concerned about one of the planets, we're probably not going to be concerned about its movement as relative to other star systems if our focus is inside the solar system. But that's just it, is like, well, how much is significant? Well, it depends on how large the reference frame is. How big of a question do you have? And then that's going to have a much more integrated answer that goes across a larger distance of space. And ostensibly time, if we don't forget the fundamentals. So Sam was asking me about, how do you know what the absolute moral value of an act is? And we've never been able to find one. Do you think that we could? And I said no, not in an absolute sense, but we could find what works for us as individuals, but it wouldn't be something that we would be able to evaluate as a whole unit, other than, well, now I'm thinking about it, I can think of it being statistically, we could measure that in terms of not voting, but having an affinity or a value for some particular axiom. But popularity doesn't necessarily make it right, it just makes it more integrated in that area. So my view has been lately that that's how everything works, is it doesn't matter if it's an idea or an object, and I hope even a subject, it's all going to have the same type of interactivity. I hope. Now, that's in reality. Now, with God, who is necessarily beyond reality, the creator of the creation, that's not going to have the same rules. That's not going to have the same laws or the same three fields: subjectivity, relativity, and objectivity, independence, integration, and sustainable interactivity. And so that's basically integration externally from itself into a larger unit. That's what sustainable interactivity does. But, or like a symbiosis or hybridization, synthesis, something like that. But that's what everything in reality is always doing. That's what everything in creation is always doing. It's trying to become more independent from other systems. It's trying to become more integrated than it was in the past, where its parts are homogeneous, or at the very least non-contradictory. They don't have to be uniform, but at least non-contradictory, where they don't get in each other's way, and everything has its own special function, and it all, gets arranged in a total system arrangement of that specific unit, and then that specific unit develops an interactive, sustainably interactive relationship with its environment, so that it doesn't destroy its environment or get destroyed by its environment. And after it does that, whatever it is, from an idea to a person to a nation to a species, ecosystems, whatever you want to consider, it all does it. It's all the same process. And I believe that that is the process of creation. So it's independence, integration internally, and integration externally, or sustainable interactivity. Those three things reflect the three fields of subjectivity, relativity, and objectivity. And the reason that ideas behave like objects is because they are part of the relativistic field, which is the in-between area of a subject and an object, or a subject and another subject, or an object and another object. But relativity describes what's in between objects or in between subjects, rather than subjects or objects in and of themselves. And that is determined by logic, which is itself just a process of integration. So, given two premises or more that are true, then you can conclude a third, I guess you'd call it a mathematical object or a logical object, a conclusion, which can then be used as a premise for a new syllogism. So it having at least two premises that are logically linked, that are integrated with each other, gives you basically an infinite field, because those two premises can give you the conclusion. One of those premises plus that conclusion gives you a new conclusion. The other premise plus the conclusion gives you another conclusion. So it will then propagate and grow toward infinity exponentially. So it will describe the entire field of mathematics and all logic in that infinite growth from just the first two premises plus the conclusion. So the integration is what describes the logical framework from which everything else is projected. Because I believe that objects are a holographic projection of subjects relating to other subjects, and in a total system arrangement. If you were to compile all of those subjects and all of those relations, then you would get an object, where 0% of it is necessarily caused by anything outside of itself, and everything, 100% of it, is caused inside of itself, with the parts integrating with the other parts and sustaining it over time. That total system arrangement, one unit, is an object which is composed of all the relations between subjects within it, because I'm an animist. But the relative field, the objective field, and the subjective field all define and are defined by each other, because I believe in causally dynamic origins for everything in existence. I believe that they all define each other. Now, what that means is that since there is an integration between all these fields, that they don't contradict each other and they all fit together, that then leads to its credence as it being real or describing what is real in reality. However, and it's a big however, that doesn't describe anything about God, and it doesn't describe anything about beyond creation. So I like to truncate it to an image of reality rather than it being actual reality. Because actual reality, what I believe actual reality to be, is God folding into God's self. And what that means is something that is totally inconceivable to any being that's in creation, because it's happening outside of creation. We can't know about it. All we can know is what it isn't, but we can't know what it is because we don't have enough information about it to be able to claim what it is, because all we will ever have is creation. And then if we try to add something that's beyond creation into our image, whatever that thing is so huge, so infinitely beyond creation, that it won't allow both to be discernible at the same time. It will take up all of our discernibility effectively. There might be a microscopic dot to represent creation, but in relation to the Creator, creation is less than a dot. It's not even a point. It doesn't show up at all. There's nothing to measure, because the infinite distance between creation and the Creator is so large that it would reduce creation to the limit of zero, or 1 divided by infinity. It's one thing with an infinite distance between itself and its Creator. So its size in relation to its Creator is 1 divided by infinity. One creation divided by an infinite distance between creation and Creator. That's the limit of zero. It basically doesn't even show up. It's just a dot. And so we don't get any, we only have a singularity of information that there is this thing called creation, but we don't get any other information that will be able to emerge in that reference frame, because in order to fit God in there plus creation, you lose discernibility of both, arguably. So we don't know much about God, and we don't really have much to work with. But if we at least say that, then we can try to derive some other conclusions from it, possibly. But the absolute value of the distance between creation and Creator is unknowable, because we don't know where the Creator begins and ends, or even if there is a beginning and an end to our Creator, because that's beyond our ability to measure. It's beyond us, literally. So there's not a way of measuring it. It's just not possible. And that doesn't matter if God is a person or a force or an object. It doesn't matter what God is, but the Creator is infinitely far away from the creation. The thing that caused the origin was beyond causation, and that makes it indiscernible. We don't have a word for that, so I don't know what to even say about that, other than I believe that that's God. And I believe that it's God folding into God's self, and that that's what makes creation exist.